what's up guys? It's Eli Knight with Knight Jiu-Jitsu. I'm here with Anya, and we were talking about a principle, and this is a principle that I use whenever I'm teaching escapes, preventions, retention, anything just about. It goes off of the idea of early to late escapes, and the gradient's kind of in there in between. This is something I refer to as the fishhook principle. Now, so a little backstory, whenever I was a kid and I was in Cub Scouts, this is why I quit Cub Scouts, because in the manual, there was how to remove a fishhook from your hand. And I thought that I had to do it for my next patch, and so I quit. But it was a really valuable lesson for me later on, because the idea is like if you get a fish hook stuck in your hand, and it's shallow, you can just pull it out. But if it's like barbed deep, you can't pull it out because it'll rip a chunk out of your skin. So it does more damage pulling out after a certain extent than it does like pushing all the way through, and then you clip it and do all this stuff. So the concept then really applies to a lot of things, because if you think about a limb, so we're talking about submissions specifically right now. If you think about a limb, your limb kind of has certain hinges or points of articulation that kind of act as that same kind of barb on a hook. So to illustrate this, the first thing I'll look to do is I'll talk about the armbar. If we're going to escape an armbar, for example, this is how the fishhook principle works. It kind of has me started in an armbar like this, right? So if we get here and she starts it and she's shallow. So shallow means that my elbow, she's not controlling my elbow very well. She doesn't have her hips in a position where she's going to be controlling that line of my elbow very well to do the lock. So then in that case here, I can just like suck it in here like this and pull my arm free, and then I can look to escape. However, so that's great. That's excellent that she has a really horrible armbar and I can escape like that. But if she's here and she's got her hips in really good position, everything is in nice and tight, then what's the escape that we typically do whenever we're late? Plus she's extending this out. So if we think about the fishhook principle in this concept right now, the idea is the elbow is the barb. It's too deep. If I try to pull my arm out here, I'm gonna wind up like snapping my own arm off. So instead here, if she goes to like here and she's elongating it out, the escape that we go to do here is the hitchhiker escape. The hitchhiker escape, generally, there's some different details that may vary, but I'm gonna do like an upside down shaka like this here. I'm gonna point my thumb down. I wanna look away from the arm. I wanna pull this top leg, kick my legs 1, 2, kind of roll over backwards. And then from here, I wanna look to start to escape this way. So basically that's a hitchhiker escape. I've covered that in other videos as well. But the underlying concept behind that is this, is that if it's shallow, you pull free. If it's deep and there's good control of the line, or you push through deeper to get out the other side. Let's look at it from like another concept here. Again, like say she goes back for foot lock. She's gonna go back here on a straight ankle lock, and she does something like this here. So again, like if she's not controlling the knee line, and there's a ton of videos out there talking about foot locks and heel hooks and leg locks and everything else, where you talk about controlling the knee line. If she was doing that, then she'd probably do something like this outside on. She kind of control here like this. She's got my foot nice and, or my knee nice and deep in here, and she's going for this straight ankle lock. So again, if she were shallow here like this, and she's not quite getting control, so we can think about the barb of the hook in this concept right here being 2 parts. One is the heel. She has to have like heel exposure even for the straight ankle lock. And she also has to have my knee under control. If she doesn't have either of those, I can just kick, twist out, something like that. If she's controlling really well and she's in nice and deep here, she's got this good like kind of ashi here like this, she's in deep like that, then what I'm gonna have to do here is I'm gonna have to push in deeper. So what I wanna look to do here is I wanna shove her leg to the floor, because I can't go forward with these obstacles in the way. The obstacles being her foot and my hip, the knee in between my legs here, prevent me from going up on top. So I'm gonna push this down. I'm gonna hop around to the outside here like this, but now I'm gonna have to push through deeper. So I'm gonna grab either the back of her neck here or up on top somehow like this, and I wanna push my foot to the floor. Once I get my foot pushed to the floor like this, maybe I can come all the way to standing here like this, prevent her from entering in on that leg lace again, or whatever else I have to do here, but my foot is safe because she can't stretch it out and finish that lock right now. So that's kind of how the fishhook principle can apply to a couple of those different situations like that. So let's look now at a little different configuration, because you know, we're talking about straight limb kind of things, like whether it's for a leg lock or an armbar or whatever. Let's look at a figure 4 kind of position. So if she starts from guard here, and she's going to start a Kimura on me. So if from here she sets up and she goes to start a Kimura like this, again, if she's shallow here and she doesn't get a really good deep bite, then the thing I want to do initially, like an early escape, is since she's not controlling the hinge of my elbow, which would be, again, the barb in this case, I'm just going to push. I want to rip my arm free like this and then reset the position. So that's a simple escape, but it's a very early one where I have a lot of warning for it. If she gets here and she kind of locks this up a little bit tighter here, and then she gets a figure 4 on, and now I'm really in deep on this one here. So from here, if I try to sit up and pull out, then it's not going to be good for me here. But what I need to do instead here like this, if she's doing a good job controlling it, yeah, like this, then I'm gonna have to try to push through deeper. So what I wanna look to do on this side here, the way that she's gonna finish this Kimura lock here is to shrimp out her hips to the side where she's attacking the Kimura arm. If she does that, she's gonna have a really good opportunity to finish that. So what I wanna do instead is I wanna post my leg up on this side. I wanna grab the inside of my thigh here. And instead of just muscling down with my arm and my shoulder here, I want to use my leg here to kind of push this back to the floor on this side. So now I'm pushing my elbow in actually deeper on this side here. I want to control her hip so she doesn't reset the position or start to kick this leg over somehow. I'm trying to block that. And then once I get her wedge of her armpit open enough here, it starts to break the grip and kind of almost counter the shoulder lock on her. Now I can start to fish my arm back inside and then reset the position like this. So again, if we look here, she goes to set up like this here. If I have good warning, I can push here like this, try to get her off of me. If she goes and she sets in deep on the lock here, she's got it. And my arm is untethered from my body. I have to get a connection back. So I create this connection here with my thigh. I want to push that down to the ground. It almost creates a little wrist lock on her initially for that grip that she has on my wrist. That tends to weaken pretty soon. And so now I want to drive all my weight over her. So my center of my mass is over her hips like this. I want to block here and I want to drive here like this until it loosens up enough. I can swim my hand back inside, and then I've successfully defended a little later in the game Kimura from there. So we looked at several different limb attacks. We looked at the straight armbar, we looked at the straight footlock, we looked at the Kimura and how we escape these using the kind of concept that I'm talking about with the fish hook. Whether it's early, you just pull free of it. You might have to create a fulcrum and a wedge to get that free. But then you also looked at the late version of it where it's, again, barb deep or hinge joint deep into the lock, and she's got a good control over that line, and then how I have to push through farther to get out the other side. Let's look at it with a choke now. A choke is a little bit different, but the idea still kind of holds true. If she's shallow on the choke, and we'll use the guillotine for this example. So from here, let's say that she starts to guillotine from the guard like this here, and she's a little shallow, so something as simple sometimes as either basing on her hips or framing up here against her neck and pushing my head through. You see this a lot of times, even when people look like they're pretty dead to rights on a guillotine, they still mess it up because they get here and their shoulder here is behind their forearm. So the idea is that if they're here, the shoulder is back here behind their forearm. It's creating a strain on the neck. It's gonna be painful and irritating, but that head eventually is gonna pop out of there. So that's why you see this happen sometimes, that somebody will get here and they're like starting to kind of push here, they're pulling and twisting, and then their head just pops right out. So that's one way. Now, if she's deeper though, she's got a much better guillotine started like this here, then I'm gonna have to push through to the other side. A way that I can escape this is that from here, I wanna throw this arm over her shoulder here like this. I need to control her hips with the other side, and I'm actually gonna base my forehead here on the floor, and I wanna get up. So this is what's pushing my head into the floor here like this, so that if she wants to crank and frame on my neck here, or shrimp or anything like that, it's gonna be very difficult for her to be able to make that happen. So what I wanna look to do from here now, I'm tripoded out, I've got the shoulder driving into her neck, hopefully like this here. And so then from there, I want to frame, I want to get her to be pushing with her legs to try to finish the lock, or try to finish the choke. And then as she's pushing, she's actually pushing to this A frame that I'm creating with my legs. So since she's doing that, she's pushing to the pinnacle of that A. So what I want to look to do here is I want to come back to her hips. I want to drive higher, get her really committed to that push, and then I want to collapse over to one side. So I kick my leg in here, hop my hips out, base here on her hips so she doesn't come up to the top. And then once I scoop free, I'm free over here to this side. Hopefully she hangs on. If she keeps hanging on to the choke here, then I can look to set up a Von Flew choke on this side of my own, and thereby countering her initial guillotine choke, exchanging it for my arm triangle or that Von Flew choke. So that's another kind of idea. Again, early, she's just kind of cranking on my neck. She doesn't have the space closed here like that, so she's not controlling the shape of my jawline or my head. Just pop out like that. In the later version, she has good position where, again, she's controlling like that cranial, how's that called? she's controlling she's controlling that occipital ridge here on the back of my neck, and she's under the jawline. She's got my chin, so I'm really wedged in there. So I'm like barb deep on that choke. I've got to push through deeper to kind of get out to the other side. So if you can get your hands on a Boy Scout manual or some other kind of medical manual, it shows you how to remove a fish hook from some part of your body. Same concept with an arrow. You get shot with like a broadhead arrow. You don't just pull that thing out. It's gonna rip a big chunk of skin and flesh and bone and sinew and blood and guts out with it. So you have to, what's my point? You have to like push through the other side and then clip that barb off and then pull it the rest of the way through or pull it out. Anyway, the reason that I wanted to illustrate this principle is because I wind up using this quite a lot whenever I'm teaching people how to escape from things. They try to do an early escape when they should do a late one, or they try to do a late one before they even try the early one that would have been successful in the first place. And whenever you do that, it violates kind of principles of efficiency. And the most important thing that we need to do in Jiu-Jitsu is be efficient. Efficiency is going to prioritize technique over strength or any other attribute, and it's going to save your reserves for whenever you actually need them. So see how this applies to different things. If you've got another example, I'd like to hear about it in the comments, because I like to use this whenever I'm teaching something. So let me know what you think in the comments and everything. Like, share, subscribe, turn on notifications, all that stuff. And thank you for watching the Night Jiu-Jitsu channel.